Hey, Karim, thanks for joining us today to discuss Trump's Middle Eastern trip, especially his swing through the Gulf nations. Everybody, Karim is our aviation and Middle East affairs expert. He is involved in politics and business and is just a wealth of knowledge on this subject. Right out the gate, let's just go with what combines both of your areas of expertise. Tell us about what you think of this gift from Qatar to the United States of this Boeing 747 aircraft, the Flying Palace, as some have described it.
Ian, it's always great to see you. I think Qatar has been trying to show the world that they are indeed a friend, not a foe to the United States. They've been doing that in every aspect from a security standpoint, international and national security, trying to help us out de-escalate certain conflicts that we've been seeing for years, their involvement, their investment into the United States. And for some reason, certain people want to demonize Qatar, which I think is a terrible thing. Now, instead of retaliating and making a foe out of themselves, I think they've been trying very hard to show the world that they are, in fact, a friend to the United States. So I think Air Force One is an old airplane. I know airplanes really well.
40
Air
years
Force
old.
It's 40 years old. It's a 740 modified 747-200. Just to give you an idea, nobody in the United States even flies those airplanes anymore. And other than cargo carriers, no passenger carrier flies the newer version, the 747-400. Even those are retired. And the most updated version is the 747-8, which is the version that the Qatari government, the Qatari royal family, is donating to the United States. So I think it's a great gesture. I think it's a very nice gift. And why shouldn't the United States of America have the biggest and the best?
I think so. I mean, so would it be accurate to say that Air Force One is almost a flying dinosaur at this point?
It belongs in a museum. I mean, most 747-200s are literally either in a museum or in the aircraft graveyard.
Interesting. On this, sticking to this for a minute, I think that it's a good turn of relations. I think it's about time that the United States start receiving some tribute from the rest of the world. We've been providing the world with a security umbrella. I think that this is in line with the shift in policy that we want to have towards the rest of the world, that we're happy to do business with you if you open up your borders and allow us to do that. And we're happy to provide security, but we're not going to do all of this stuff for free. So buy our products and treat us with respect. And I think Qatar is setting the tone by being a country that gifts us this, $400 million plane, state-of-the-art flying palace. I can think of several countries that we do a lot for that I can't name any large gift that they've given us lately.
It's a $400 million American-made Boeing 747. It's not like they're giving us a French-made Airbus, right? And so the Boeing is the winner. We're the winner. And I mean, we've done a lot for Qatar. We've done a lot over the years for them in every aspect, in numerous industry, for their security, for their advancement. And something that a lot of people don't understand, Middle Eastern culture is very hospitable, is very giving. So we might see it as very odd that they're giving us a $400 million jet. Over there, it's not so odd.
And I think we should accept their gift. And a lot of people forget that Qatar shares its natural gas field with Iran, the large natural gas field there that is in the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. About a third of it extends into Iran's territorial waters. And so us providing security for that region has done a lot for Qatar to become the global multi-billion-dollar powerhouse that it is today. Actually, I think they do multiple trillions of dollars in business through liquid natural gas shipments. So it is a country that owes a lot to the security umbrella of the United States and the Western markets. So I only see this as a natural gift that any friend who appreciates what we've done for them would want to give us. And so I think that the calls for that we should deny this gift or that this is somehow corrupt, it's just more whining from losers, in my opinion.
Listen, if you want to gift me a $400 million jetty in, I'll gladly take it. No questions asked.
Great. Well, let's move on to you know, it, President Trump's recent trip has been described as a new dawn for America's relationship with the Middle East, especially the Gulf countries. It appears that Gulf countries have been looking to revamp their relationship with the United States for a while, and this did get underway in the last Trump administration, but with the Abraham Accords, but it wasn't. It was cut short by the stolen election, and now we're moving away from a transactional oil for security relationship to more bilateral investments, more business, more goodwill. It's less quid pro quo and more of a mature friendship between countries. What is Trump doing differently than his predecessors to kind of reimagine this relationship? And would you agree with my description?
Well, first and foremost, Trump, going back to what people have been saying since 2015, Trump is a businessman. Trump understands that this is the fastest growing region on the planet at the moment that is seeing the biggest advancements in AI, the biggest advancements across industries, and he wants to be a part of it. He doesn't want to demonize the fastest growing region on the planet. He wants to harness those relationships, and he wants the United States to ultimately benefit from them. And I think we saw that last week. These are numbers, the investments that we've received from these Gulf countries, these are numbers we've never seen before. Trillions of dollars. I mean, who's ever heard of a $2 trillion investment in a matter of 2 days? And by the way, that number, I believe, is going to be even bigger. These are just, guarantees. And then there's, it can extend up to X number of dollars from each of those countries. So, I think your analysis earlier very much is accurate, and I think Donald Trump is trying to harness these relationships. He's trying to strengthen these relationships. And listen, I spend a lot of time in the Middle East. I was in the Middle East 4 times in the last 2 months, and what I can tell you is there are a lot of Americans there. There are a lot of also people from China. There are people from Europe over there, but a lot of Americans are in the Middle East right now, living there part-time, doing business there. I think it's very exciting. I think the American people need to understand this is in fact what's going on, and I think we need to embrace it.
I will admit that in the last week, I have watched more than a handful of videos of what it's like to live as an American in Dubai, and I have fantasized about maybe relocating and picking up a new skill set.
You know, the funniest thing, and I was just in Saudi Arabia last month. I'll be in Saudi Arabia again this coming month, and I was watching some of the mainstream media walking around Riyadh, and one of the anchors, I don't want to say who, but he's walking around. He's like, "I can't believe we're in Saudi Arabia." So, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, people, the image that they have of Saudi Arabia is a out of date image of people, Bedouins in the desert. That aren't very civilized, that oppress women, that oppress people, that are barbarians, and that's not at all the truth. And I think the sooner we accept that, the sooner we recognize that these are very much developed countries, that these are thriving economies, the sooner we're gonna be better off, and the sooner our entrepreneurs in this country are going to get to thrive.
Well, and to expand on that, I saw the Grand Palaces. Stephen Miller, one of our favorite bulldogs in the Trump administration, made a post that he said this exquisite palace cost less than 1 year of housing illegal aliens in New York City. And it just goes to show that it really feels like we have the know-how, we have the resources, but we're just directing them in the wrong place. Why is it that America in many places looks like a rust belt? And why can't we take this energy and this dynamism and direct it to something more constructive? And it makes me think of the foreign policy of the Bush era and the Obama era, and the neocons, the neoliberals, approaching the Middle East with a stick and no carrot, and almost just lording over these places without treating them with dignity, and inviting this business diplomacy, which is what China has been doing with their One Belt, One Road initiative. Now there's different ways to pick that apart and find that might be unfair with the loans that they give and what the quid pro quo that's involved in that. But suffice to say, we've been conducting our diplomacy in the Middle East with a much more militaristic character. And now we're trying to move into, with the Trump vision, the Trump doctrine, if you will, a more business approach, a win-win approach. And I think that this is maybe ruffling a little bit of some feathers in the establishment. Would you talk on why this was not done before? What was different about those incentives?
First and foremost, we've heard the saying, those that can't do teach. I like to say those that can't do enter politics in the United States. Unfortunately, we have a lot of very uneducated, untalented elected officials in this country that don't know what they're doing. They don't know what to do, what they're doing in regards to business, in regards to industry, in regards to growing the economy. And previous administrations have totally demonized the Middle East. And what you see now is us being caught with our pants down, and Donald Trump recognizing this is trying to recover that. I think that's why this has been going on for quite some time, and we just didn't realize it. I realized it. People that are in it realize it, but the American people holistically, I think we're ultimately surprised about the conditions over there. Trump recognizes that, and rather than focusing on Europe or rather than focusing on Asia, China, they're focused on the Middle East. So why shouldn't we be focused on the Middle East? What you're going to see here is a growing alliance. I would hope there would be a growing alliance, and I hope future administrations focus on strengthening this alliance, because the future, other than crypto and various industries, is going to be AI. And China is heavily invested in AI. China is heavily focused on AI, not just in their homeland, but in the Middle East. So us strengthening those relationships, particularly in the AI space, you saw plenty of those AI CEOs. Sam Altman was present there with the president, and a lot of the investments from the Middle East going into these American-born companies. That's what we need, not just to advance our industries, not just to advance our American-born companies, but to advance our national security.
Yes, and speaking of national security, I think that so much of how our relationship with the Gulf states and the Middle East at large was shaped under the dark shadow of 9/11, and of course left an indelible mark on how Americans think of the region, and maybe we're entering an era where that relationship is getting repaired, and certainly there was a lot of blood and treasure that was lost in trying to do nation building in the Middle East in response to the terror tragedy on 9/11, and so that could explain a lot of why it's taken this long for American relations with the Gulf states and the Middle East and that dark cloud to finally clear, as it seems like it has. Now, you did say something about AI, which I think is important, because Trump's visit to the UAE, there were announcements about a partnership between the United States and the UAE about building a massive data center complex in Abu Dhabi with advanced AI capabilities, 5 gigawatts of capacity, enough power to sustain a major city. Would you speak on how this represents the vision of Gulf nations to become more than just an energy hub and to really catch on to this, what they call the fourth industrial revolution, the AI revolution?
So I'll use Saudi Arabia as an example. Saudi Arabia, MBS's 2030 initiative, which is an initiative to essentially diversify Saudi Arabia's economy away from oil and more on tourism and more on innovation, et cetera, et cetera. He's honing in and giving younger people, they have a relatively young population, younger people the opportunity to get an education even outside of Saudi Arabia, even though they seem to be progressing massively in their own education in-house. He wants his country to thrive. And surprisingly, I mean, a lot of people doubted the 2030 initiative, but he moved very quickly, and Saudi Arabia as a nation moved very quickly to achieve this. Similarly, the other GCC countries, the UAE leading the wave in AI advancement, Qatar, they very much share and are very much aligned in that vision. My last visit to the UAE about 3 weeks ago, every time I'm there, it seems like something dramatically changed. And this time, every cab that I saw, every taxi cab that I saw was a Tesla, which is incredible. So they're moving away from a oil-reliant country to more of a innovation superpower, and everybody seems to me to be very much aligned on that. So the sooner, again, we separate from that mindset, the sooner we're all going to win. And this is definitely the party that the party that is necessary for us to achieve these advancements in the future worldwide, not just in the region.
I think that's great. I mean, I just hope this mindset, as you said, shifts towards what is possible, and rather than picking apart and dividing ourselves over differences and whatnot. While you were talking about Qatar, real quick, it's been in the news a lot. Qatar. I mean, it was actually the first visit ever of a U.S. president to the nation, and Qatar is known for topics ranging from that it's a place where the Taliban and Hamas have offices, where there's diplomacy conducted through Qatar with some unpopular actors, and it has a bit of a cloud over its reputation in that regard. And then there's also this allegation that Qatar gives disproportionately to American higher education, and people have alleged that is contributing to the anti-Semitism seen on American campuses in the United States, and that this country is really having an outsized influence on the country. And of course, as we discussed right when we kicked off this discussion, the gift of this airplane. So why would you go into detail about why Qatar has this interesting role where it's sort of bouncing between different adversarial worlds, and how has Qatar kind of created this outsized reputation for itself, because it's such a tiny state? It's just a little peninsula off of Saudi Arabia.
I think people are reading way too far into this. I think Qatar is an incredible country. I think they're an incredible ally to the United States. You mentioned Hamas having an office in Qatar, and I think we have to go back and look at history to understand why that office is there. This was a request by the Obama administration. Qatar very graciously offered a office building not just to Hamas, but to the Israelis and to Americans, to essentially facilitate peace talks. The United States certainly wasn't going to host Hamas on American soil. Israel certainly wasn't going to host Hamas on American soil. So under the request of the Obama administration, the Qataris very graciously offered that, and it's proven to be a very advantageous thing for everybody. I mean, we've gotten hostage exchanges because of that relationship, and Qatar hosting all the parties involved. So as it relates to that, it's not like you walk around Qatar and you're like, oh my goodness, there are terrorists walking around. This is a very clean, very civilized, very modern city with people that are highly educated and very, very, very successful. And I think we have to give them that respect, and we have to recognize that, and we have to give them that credit. So I think Qatar's truly been an incredible friend to us, and we have to stop trying to demonize them. I think it's totally ridiculous. I know there are claims by the state of Israel that Qatar is the one of the state sponsors of terrorism, that they own Al Jazeera. In turn, they spew all this anti-Semitic propaganda against them. I think we're reading way too far into this. We're giving that way too much credit, and it's really unfortunate, and it's dishonest, and I think it's disrespectful to our friends. I think they have gone above and beyond to show the American people that they want to be friends, that they want to grow with us, and we should embrace that.
Thank you for that insightful assessment. Next, what does this diplomatic revamp with these Gulf states in the Middle East mean for the larger relationship between the United States and Israel? It's no secret that many of these nations have been critical of the embattled state of Israel and its relationship with the other countries in the region, with specifically its prosecution of the current Palestine war. Does this does this trip and these deals that are coming out of this trip mean for relations with Israel, the United States, and the Middle East?
I think a lot of these Gulf countries, Qatar in particular, the UAE in particular, and Saudi Arabia are begging. They have a massive megaphone begging Israel to give them a little bit so that they can normalize ties. They all want to normalize ties. I mean, the UAE already has. Qatar would love to do that and would love to actually rather grow that. And Saudi Arabia has expressed over and over again that they would love to normalize ties with Israel and consider the state of Israel as a Middle Eastern nation, and so Israel can fall under that GCC umbrella. The last UN National Assembly, the Gulf countries said publicly, very publicly, in a joint press conference that they would love to A, normalize ties, and B, they would love to guarantee Israel's safety and security and consider them, the state of Israel, as one of their own. The condition for that, though, is a two-state solution. And I think the sooner we wrap this war up, the sooner we stop the bloodshed, the murder of civilians, the sooner we enter a healthy, honest negotiation for a two-state solution, the sooner all of this can happen, and then everybody in the region can be happy. I think what this visit, this last visit, President Trump's visit, has shown the American people, I hope it's shown the American people, is that the Gulf countries are ready to move on. They want to be our friends. They've progressed and they've come a long way, and they don't want to jeopardize that. They don't want war. War is bad for everybody at the end of the day. So they've expressed that they'd love to normalize ties, and they want to move forward from this. But I don't think that's going to happen unless this war is wrapped up in a peaceful manner.
It seemed for a while that a two-state solution was out of the question, and now it seems like it's coming back into the conversation. I'm with you that we want to see the war wrapped up, and I think Trump said it in his speech, that he says that the people of Gaza deserve to live in peace. I'm paraphrasing, but he said that, and there was a great applause to that. And so, whatever needs to be done for the war to be finished, I think we all support that. And it's interesting how this region is turning into a new chapter, essentially, and hopefully there will be a new chapter for Israel and Palestine and the greater harmony within the region. The last thing I want to touch on is Syria. Trump announced that he was going to lift all sanctions on Syria. Syria has been a troubled state for several decades now, and now there's been a regime change. What are you hearing from your counterparts in the region about this announcement that the sanctions are being lifted?
I think the news on Syria is probably one of the most important things that came of this visit. I think President Trump did something that is incredibly brave, that is was totally unexpected, and is a good faith effort to show the region that the United States is invested in peace, not war. I think the Syrian people have been dealing with a very tough situation for really nearly 80 years now, and I think they deserve the opportunity for a future back home. There are a lot of Syrian refugees that live in Europe. There are a lot of Syrian refugees that live in the United States, and they would love nothing more than to return home. So first and foremost, I got to tell you, just the chatter on the ground, my colleagues in the business world, real estate, you name it, I'm hearing people from the Gulf countries say, we're ready to move into Syria. A lot of phone calls are being made, a lot of meetings are being had, and it's only been a week, and people are ready to invest largely into rebuilding Damascus and Aleppo and other major cities in Syria. I think the new president of Syria has emphasized and has shown President Trump that he is in fact a changed man. He was, he had a earlier history of being a militant, and I know and I recognize that that's scary to some people. But bottom line is, he's the president. Give him a chance to either prove himself or to dig his own hole. And who are we to judge at the end of the day? But he is committed, and he's made it clear to President Trump that he is committed to attacking radical Islamic terrorism and making sure that there is no place for it in Syria.
Interesting. Well, I'm really excited to see what the future brings. I mean, this is a region that has had a reputation of war and chaos, and poverty, and it's just amazing to see how much wealth and stability has spread across the region in recent history, and it really feels like there is an enthusiasm for a new chapter, and under strong leadership that is being shown in the United States and in the Gulf countries. So I'm optimistic. It seems like everyone else is optimistic. I'd love to go and visit before too long, and see what's going on with my own eyes in these in these emirates and these countries in the Gulf. So I'm excited.
I want to add one other note.
Yeah.
You accompanied me during a press conference during towards the end of the President Trump's campaign, where I joined Arab leaders in New York with Mossad Boulos, President Trump's senior advisor, Middle East Affairs, and Lee Zeldin at the time, to publicly endorse President Trump. And I gave a speech, and I said something very important. I said, Arab Americans don't want to see bloodshed. They don't want to see war. I said that people are ready to move on from all of these catastrophes, decades and decades of just the atrocities being committed over and over. And I emphasized that people have abandoned the Democrat Party, have abandoned Kamala Harris. Arab Americans have abandoned Kamala Harris at the time because she was out campaigning with Liz Cheney, who she made her top military advisor, the daughter of Dick Cheney, who was the architect of the Iraq War.
Talk about going back to the past.
It's insane. It's insane. And President Trump, I got to give him credit, even when he was a civilian, going back to immediately after 9/11, he was anti the Iraq War. We had no reason to be in Iraq. We had no reason to be in Iraq. All we did, we lost Americans. We lost trillions of dollars. We killed, countless civilians.
It's contributed to destabilizing the region
and empowering terrorism. That's what we did. So I'm so happy that President Trump is acting on his word, and he's showing his voters, Arab Americans in the United States, this is what you voted for. This is what I promised. We will bring peace. Now, things aren't going 100% to plan. Things aren't going 100% with the vision that people maybe expected as it relates to Gaza. But I really do sense that Trump is absolutely committed to this, and I'm really happy to see it.
Great. Well, thank you for the words of wisdom. A lot of nuggets in this discussion that I hope everyone finds insightful and enjoys. So thank you so much for joining me, Karim. And let's whenever news pops up on this side of the world, you're the first person I'm going to call, or anything to do with aviation.
It's always a pleasure. And in addition to making America great again, it's time to make Arabia great again. And the Arab countries, some of the footage that's been coming out of the Middle East, I feel like the Arabs in the region are more MAGA than we are MAGA. It's incredible. It's been really fun to watch.
That'd be a tough competition to win. I bet we are.
That's right.
All right, brother. Well, take care.
Ian. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.